Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering woke company refuses to give job to white male, gets massive lawsuit. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. This story is about a lawsuit being brought against a discriminatory company, a big company, refusing to give a job to a qualified person just because of their skin color. From the Daily Mail, I risked my life serving my country in Iraq, but now I've lost my job at a bank because I'm a white man. Chris Smith has 20 years experience from Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond as a security operator, and we'll get into more detail about his experience. He's not just a guy who's like, hey, I did a little bit of this, I did a little bit of that. He's highly trained and highly experienced and was refused an appropriate job for his experience because he wasn't the right skin color or the right gender. And from AmericaFirstLegal.com, who's handling the lawsuit, America First Legal sues Ally Bank for alleged anti-white, anti-male discrimination. A white male Iraq war veteran is suing a top U.S. bank, saying he was pushed aside in favor of a less qualified candidate in an aggressive diversity hiring push. Chris Smith says Ally Financial ignored his 20 years experience in security and intelligence work and gave the job he wanted to an ex-Walmart employee because she was a woman. And of course, there's nothing wrong with working for Walmart, but the security demands on somebody who is a manager at Walmart is a little bit different than military intelligence. He got a junior role in the North Carolina office for the bank, but was then sidelined by a boss who railed against white supremacy, was treated unfairly, and ended up quitting within weeks, he says. And you'll see, he's not just a prima donna. He was treated badly, and differently in numerous ways. You'll see when we get to the examples. It's the latest lawsuit from America First Legal, a campaign group led by former Trump administration officials, most notably Stephen Miller, and they fight diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in the United States. Advocates of DEI says it helps get more women and minorities into colleges and workplaces, but critics say it ends up hurting straight white men. Critics don't just say that. They also acknowledge that, of course, it's hurting everybody of every gender when you put people into positions that they are not appropriate for, because they're not competing based on merit. They're competing based on a quota system, not on the quality of the individual and what they're able to accomplish. Ally Financial, an $8 billion a year bank holding firm headquartered in Detroit, Michigan, did not answer DailyMail.com's request for comment. Quote, federal law is clear. No discrimination means no discrimination, said AFL lawyer Gene Hamilton. No American should ever face discrimination on account of their race or sex, and we fight to achieve justice for our client. The case was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of North Carolina on Tuesday. Smith, a former Marine and Army intelligence officer who served in Iraq and Afghanistan and has 2 decades of experience in security, applied for 3 roles in Ally's newly created Threat Division unit in 2023. He was offered and accepted the lowest paying role as a security analyst on about $75,000 a year salary. Ally hired Rachel Stuckey, a white woman who had worked for the previous 4 years at Walmart as a team manager. Stuckey also had a year of experience in counterterrorism work in Israel. And a year of experience is nice, but compare that to 20 years experience? Also, that was a part-time position that she had. It wasn't even a full-time position. Smith says Stuckey was hired because of her gender so the bank could meet DEI targets. Ally also hired a less qualified black woman and black man in senior analyst roles above Smith, despite his greater experience, it is claimed. Once he started working in the Charlotte office in September 2023 for the bank, Smith said he faced further discrimination. Wait till you hear this. He was not properly credited for his work, he says. So when you do work at a company, you do expect to be getting credit for what you do? Not for what other people do necessarily, but for whatever it is you're responsible for. That's part of your career, being credited for your work. Not for him. His teammates were sent on training courses, could do work from home, and got parking spots near the office, but Smith did not. So Smith didn't get training courses, not allowed to work from home. Others could, but not him. And he didn't even get a parking spot near the office. I mean, this gets pretty ridiculous. I understand the whole white supremacy myth and all that, but I mean, this is, you need to treat people equivalent in a workplace. You can't discriminate against certain people either because you don't like them or you don't like their skin color. It's not legally allowed. Smith was also mistreated by Ally Director Bruce Bellamy, that's this guy, who was fixated on DEI according to court papers. Bellamy said the bank's gravest security threats were white supremacists and anti-DEI groups and anti-woke groups. When Smith disagreed, because of course that's an absolutely ridiculous statement to say that the bank's biggest security threats are anti-woke people or anti-DEI people or white supremacy, like they're going to go after your bank somehow. I mean, yeah, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get lawsuits if you discriminate against people. But that's not what the security threat division is looking at. They're looking at things like hacking and people stealing things from the bank or robbing the bank. They're not talking about legal liability for discriminating against people illegally. They're talking about literally like a life or death security threat to the bank. When Smith disagreed, because of course he's the most experienced person in the room, the boss took particular umbrage at a white male questioning his views, it's claimed. Bellamy and Stuckey isolated Smith from other Ally employees, refused to credit him for his work product, and imposed substantial obstacles on his ability to perform his job duties, harming his performance, according to the lawsuit. The differential and negative treatment was motivated by Smith's race and gender, they add. Smith quit on September 18th and has since struggled to get paying work. The 20-page lawsuit says Ally violated the race and gender protections of the Civil Rights Act. Smith seeks a jury trial, compensation, and his legal costs paid. Ally did not comment on the lawsuit. Not surprising, because there's not much they can possibly say other than, yeah, he's a white guy. Of course we discriminate against him. The company has a tough DEI policy and says it works to build a diverse and talented team. It is close to evenly split between men and women, according to Ally. Quote, we increased or maintain representation of women and people of color in our manager and above roles and redesigned programs to create more opportunities for individuals new to their roles in the company, according to Ally in a recent report. The case is part of a growing number of lawsuits and filings against DEI practices since the U.S. Supreme Court's landmark June 2023 ruling to end affirmative action in college admissions. AFL, America First Legal, which is led by former President Donald Trump's advisor Stephen Miller, has filed more than 15 lawsuits and more than 30 complaints to a U.S. civil rights agency. And I've covered many of those lawsuits on this channel. I like to cover the work of America First Legal because they're out there in the field and they're actually doing things. They're protecting people who would otherwise not be protected against this kind of ridiculous discrimination that really is damaging our society. America First Legal is also acknowledged by Bloomberg, New York Times, multiple mass media publications that understand that America First Legal is really helping to change things in the United States. So is Edward Blum's organization. His organization brought the Supreme Court lawsuit where they won the affirmative action college admissions case against Harvard and UNC. AFL's lawsuits have claimed that hiring and recruitment decisions made around both jobs and fellowships at large companies are biased against white workers. Quote, major corporations across the United States have programs and policies that blatantly discriminate against American citizens for the very things they cannot control, according to AFL's Gene Hamilton. Advocates of DEI schemes say they bring more black, brown, female, and queer talent into offices and colleges and raise morale across the board. They certainly don't raise morale across the board. It's great to give people the opportunity to do certain work. But when people know that they're going to work hard and they're not going to get appreciated for what they do, but basically just what they look like, it doesn't improve morale. It can't possibly improve morale because you're not getting acknowledged for a job well done. That's a human thing. We like to be acknowledged when we work hard and we do something right. And when we do something wrong, okay, it doesn't feel good, but we learn and then we get better at what we do and move on to the next step. And when we succeed at that next step, then we get new opportunities, not based on our gender or based on who we know. And that's what this is all about, maintaining what's great about America. Meritocracy, opportunity, and ultimately freedom. And from Bloomberg, conservative duo wants to take down diversity programs one bias claim at a time. This is about America First Legal and Edward Blum's organization. Bloomberg is very aware of who these people are, because they're taking down DEI. Two conservative groups are using separate legal strategies to achieve the same goal: use the courts to thwart diversity programs. Of course, illegal diversity programs. That's what they're concerned about. You can have whatever diversity programs you want to have. Just don't make them illegal, or you're going to get sued. The actions of the two groups with similar patriotic-sounding names, America First Legal and American Alliance for Equal Rights, has grabbed the attention of diversity, equity, and inclusion offices at universities, law firms, and corporations and prompted changes to DEI programs. It is working. There's a lot more work to be done, but it is working, and we should be happy about it, and we should support these guys as much as we can. America First Legal, led by former President Donald Trump advisor Stephen Miller, alleges that corporate DEI programs are illegal under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which of course they are. The 1964 Civil Rights Act does not just protect certain genders or certain skin colors or certain sexual preferences. Civil rights protections are for all Americans. The group filed at least 15 lawsuits and sent over 30 letters asking the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, to probe companies including Morgan Stanley and IBM Corp., and many more. Quote, sometimes conservatives have tended historically to want to leave the private sector alone and treat government like the bad guy, America First Legal Vice President Gene Hamilton said in an interview. Our view is much more nuanced, which is bad conduct, wherever it rears its head. American Alliance for Equal Rights, led by conservative activist Edward Blum, has largely banked on Section 1981 of the 1866 Civil Rights Act, which affirmed all citizens are equally protected by the law. The group has cited the statute in its challenge of DEI at law firms including Winston & Strawn, Morrison Foster, and Perkins Coie. The 1866 statute is broader than Title VII, and plaintiffs who use it avoid both the damage cap and the EEOC's pre-litigation charge process. It does matter what laws you bring these claims against these companies for, in terms of how much money you can get from them, and how you structure the claims. It gets into complicated legal things, some of which I understand, some of which I don't completely understand. The Blum Group's use of Section 1981 brought a favorable ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, which in a June 3rd split decision, split 2-1, blocked the venture capital firm Fearless Fund Management's LLC grant program for black women entrepreneurs because it was likely to violate the statute, because it was ridiculous and completely discriminatory, and they were only allowing grants for black women applicants. If you were a white woman, you couldn't get the grant. And that's what they won on. Section 1981 puts legal advocacy groups in the driver's seat in litigation, which is the primary goal, said Nani Shivers, a management side attorney. Both groups work as part of an accelerating effort to attack workplace diversity programs, though definitive court victories in DEI-related litigation have been scarce since the Supreme Court's June 2023 Harvard decision that limited the use of race in college admissions. The Blum Group's law firm suits against law firms that were discriminating against certain employees of certain skin colors or potential employees of certain skin colors or people that were applying for internship programs were all settled out of court, though all three legal operations changed the language of their DEI programs. That would be part of the settlement agreement to say, look, now go ahead and do it, but don't do it in an illegal way. Blum won those cases. Quote, I don't think that their efforts have yet resulted in anything close to a sea change in the Title VII framework, how anti-discrimination law works, said Terrell Wilkins, an employee side attorney. Quote, at the same time, I think it would be a mistake for practitioners to ignore their efforts altogether or to downplay the significance of what they're doing because this continues to be a really well-funded organization. Meaning to say the people that know that they're out there breaking the law with these DEI programs are well aware they can't keep breaking the law. They're getting caught. Miller's America First Legal, founded in 2021, is staffed by Trump-era officials, including Gene Hamilton, a former counselor to the Attorney General, and Reed Rubenstein, a former Deputy Associate Attorney General. The group raised $44 million in 2022, $27 million of which came from a single undisclosed donor, according to a 2023 tax filing cited by Bloomberg News. They are getting millions in donations, and the millions going to America First Legal in donations keep going up because people see they're getting results. Quote, there is a unique opportunity, given what the Supreme Court said last year in the Harvard case, for us to push the accelerator even further in the fight for more Americans and to bring more cases, more lawsuits, and file more complaints, Gene Hamilton said. The organization gets leads from sources that include tips from insiders and by examining company websites, Hamilton said. It has a hotline for those who believe they're being discriminated against by corporate DEI policies and also solicits potential plaintiffs through Twitter. The, quote, number of individuals reaching out to us has only increased over time, increased very substantially, and the information we obtain from insiders is very helpful, said Rubenstein, the group's senior counsel and director of oversight and investigations. Specifying individuals who claim they've been harmed by DEI programs will be important proof of standing to sue for conservative groups, which are beginning to name names. In a lawsuit filed June 4th against Ally Financial, which we're covering now, America First Legal identified a male job applicant who claims the company discriminated against him by hiring a female candidate with less experience due to its DEI efforts. You need a plaintiff to make a lawsuit in most cases. Who got harmed by the company? Oh, the guy's name is Chris Miller, whatever the guy's name is? Fine, we can sue on your behalf if you want us to be your attorneys. And then America First Legal doesn't charge people for this representation because they want to see the culture get fixed. They want these illegal DEI programs called out and removed, especially from big companies. America First Legal appears to keep a good deal of litigation work in-house, but has also sought support from smaller firms that have litigated on conservative legal causes. While the group's EEOC letters alleging that corporate DEI programs are illegal under Title VII have yet to get a response, it's hopeful that, quote, someone's paying attention, Hamilton said. But honestly, we don't know. And I've emailed America First Legal and asked them how these letters are going and are they getting responses. Part of making their complaints in lawsuits require them sometimes to send these EEOC complaints first. The EEOC complaints also do get a lot of media coverage, and the media coverage helps them to get more donations and helps them to fund more lawsuits and helps them to threaten more companies and scare more companies that are openly breaking the law with DEI policies. While America First Legal's main focus is high-profile corporations, litigation targets of Blum's group have ranged from nonprofits such as the Fearless Fund to law firms to the Smithsonian. By the way, the Fearless Fund is not a private business. They have a nonprofit organization that they use to raise money for grants that they discriminatingly and illegally only give to Black women entrepreneurs, but they're also a venture capital firm that seeks out deals that they can finance and personally profit on based on their ability to find these people through their grant programs. So they actually tie it up together. Blum has taken the actions after he successfully brought the high court case that curtailed affirmative action in schools last year through a second group he formed about a decade ago, Students for Fair Admissions. Blum said his group, like America First Legal, relies on unsolicited tips, though it has a much more limited legal portfolio than Miller's operation. It's a smaller operation than Miller's. The group receives about a dozen emails a week with prospective race and ethnicity-based legal violations, he said. He declined to specify funding sources. The group is required to disclose funding to the IRS, but its records for the past year aren't public yet. His previous public interest ventures received high dollar donations from the conservative nonprofit Donors Trust, which sent Students for Fair Admissions $1.5 million in 2018. Donors Trust, according to its website, has distributed more than $1.7 billion to more than 1,900 groups since its 1999 founding. Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher is defending many of the litigation targets of Blum's group as pro bono clients. Pro bono means the law firm is doing it for goodwill. They're doing it and they're not charging fees. These pro bono clients include Fearless Fund, Hidden Star, and Founders First Community Development. I do have one question, though. The founder of Fearless Fund is claiming their whole business fell apart because of the Edward Blum lawsuit, challenging their discriminatory practices with giving grants. Quote, it all fell apart. Okay, let's look a little bit more, though. The firm, Fearless Fund, which launched in 2019 and grew to a team of 19, has since scaled back to 6. Quote, it all fell apart due to litigation, says Simone. Simone's the CEO of Fearless Fund. Quote, you're talking millions of dollars we've lost, and it's truly impacting our operations. But you're not even paying legal fees. According to this Bloomberg article, Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher is doing pro bono work for Fearless Fund. So how did you lose millions of dollars? What were you actually doing with that grant money? I don't know. I don't know that Edward Blum is going to get into it, but something doesn't seem right to me with Fearless Fund. That's just my opinion. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.